into Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. You know, this field right here, Brian, is going to be corn next year. And we have got rootworms like there's no tomorrow in this part of the state. We need to have some rootworm insecticide out there to try and stop them. We'll talk about which ones are going to be more effective and which ones you may want to use on your farm.
Well, when we're talking about rootworm insecticides, you may want to think about return on investment. And that's probably the most important phrase that you could ever think about in your farm or any business. We wanted to talk through just some of the numbers that you might consider going into 2013.
We've got an awesome weed of the week, Brian, because there's virtually no pesticide in the world labeled on this thing. So how are we going to control this weed? We'll show you later in the show. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
If you're a non-farmer, you may be driving around the country in the fall and you see how some farmers are leaving all their plant residue, all their stalks and leaves and everything out in the field to break down, and other farmers are baling them up. Why do some farmers bale them as opposed to other farmers leaving them? What are the advantages and disadvantages?
Well, certainly the biggest reason why farmers are baling up stalks is to use it as part of their feed source for cattle. And when you look around many of the feedlots, they'll actually take those bales of stalks and pile them up and use them as a windbreak in the winter around the cattle. So they're kind of getting a dual purpose there, using it for feed, but also using it as a windbreak. Now, for farmers that are leaving it in the field, they figured out, hey, there's so many nutrients in these stalks. I don't want just the cattle to get it. I want to leave them out in my field. So there's a couple different ways to look at it.
Yeah, but that's no big deal if you're putting the manure back into the field. Then basically it's fine. There's no problem with that. It's just you want to make sure you're replacing those nutrients that you've removed, because like Darren said, there are nutrients in the stalks. And when you take those off the field, you could potentially hurt next year's crop. But there is one way that you could possibly help next year's crop too. In certain situations, farmers have so much residue out there, it's hard for them to plant the next crop and get that seed to have good seed to soil contact and get a nice stand. So by taking some of the stalks off the field, they kind of thin things out a little bit, and now they can get the seeds in better. They get a little nicer stand.
Well, there's certainly been a lot of discussion over the last decade about, wow, we've got this residue out in the field that could be used to make fuel. And we're talking about cellulosic ethanol production. And so there are a few plants around the country now. Some are just in a real small stage, but others, like Poet's Project Liberty, are up with large quantities of residue. And they're actually taking that residue that has some value in the field, but not a huge value, and they're buying it from farmers and using it to make fuel, which has even more value.
Well, that's one way you can look at the whole thing. Here's the way I look at it. Most ethanol plants around the country are using corn. And a lot of people say, oh, it's taking away our food. Well, you know what? You as a human being don't eat yellow corn, number 2 yellow corn. Okay, so what happens is when they bring this number 2 yellow corn in, it's normally stuff that is fed to livestock. But did you know that when they're processing the ethanol from the corn, they're taking none of the nutrient value out. They're taking the starch out. And actually, as a farmer then, you can take the distiller's grain, they'll call it, what's left after the process, you can mix that with some of these corn stalks, and now you're right back to the same nutritional value you had with the corn that went in the plant in the first place. So you didn't lose anything.
And like you say, Brian, if you take the manure from the livestock and bring that back out in the field and put that back out as plant food for the next crop, you really have gone full circle. You've gotten so many uses out of that cornfield. It's been fantastic, both for the environment, for our economy, and for the livestock too.
Yep, so did you mention livestock twice there, Darren? The livestock are really important. We want to make sure that the livestock are fed well. But once again, the reason why some farmers choose to bale up their stocks, it has to do with their livestock, whether it's for food or bedding or possibly even a windbreak.
One thing you don't want to leave in your field as a windbreak is our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
You can't fill a barrel any fuller than its lowest stave, and your crops can't do any better than the nutrient that's in shortest supply. Your yield potential is only as good as the weakest nutrient in your fertilizer program. Give your crops more than just NPK. Prescription apply all the micronutrients your crop needs, each one customized for your crop's potential. MicroLink, linking yield to potential.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Harvest season will soon be over, but don't put away your equipment until you bring it into Titan Machinery, your Case IH dealer. Take advantage of our Uptime Maintenance program. Uptime is Titan's preventative maintenance service designed to eliminate costly downtime during the short working season. Our technicians average more than 10 years of experience and use a comprehensive checklist to find problems before they slow you down. Call Titan Machinery today to schedule your Uptime service so you can spend the winter worry-free. Titan Machinery and Case IH. Better solutions.
Back in 1966, Advanced Drainage Systems, Inc. was the first company to start manufacturing plastic agricultural drainage pipe in the United States. And today, ADS continues our leadership with superior pipe production and service capabilities. Our roots are firmly entrenched in the agriculture industry, and we're committed to helping farmers grow their business. With 54 manufacturing plants and 24 distribution yards throughout the world, you can count on ADS and our green striped pipe to be there when you need us. Advanced Drainage Systems, the green striped pipe you can count on.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Rootworm insecticides. Farmers are talking about these things like they haven't been in the last 10 years probably since BT rootworm corn first came out. But there is a lot of talk because the BT rootworm traits are not working as good as they are expected to work.
Well, just be careful about that when you say the traits aren't working, because some of them are. Like Smart Stacks, for example, it stacks 2 different rootworm traits, is working great.
Well,
it's the single trait products that are having some issues with rootworm resistance. So that's where we're looking at the major focus of insecticide uses on those acres. But also some guys are saying, well, wait a minute now, these bugs have to take a bite out of my root to get that BT protein. I think I might even want to protect the Smart Stacks corn.
Right. That's what we're doing on our farm. We have been ever since we started planting Smart Stacks a 3 years ago. Anyway, what we wanted to focus on today is what are the different insecticide choices out there, which one should you use in your operation, and what are the different application methods. So let's start with application methods. How are we going to put this on?
Okay, well there's a few different ways. First of all, if you have dry granular insecticide and you actually have those boxes still on your planter, congratulations. You're one of the minority right now. There aren't as many farmers.
That's the best way to go.
Yeah, there aren't as many farmers that have that. Back in the old days, hey, everybody had that and it was easy. But now there aren't as many. And yeah, it is the best way to apply your insecticide. You've got some good choices like Force and Aztec are probably the best ones. Lorsban's still not too bad a choice. But the problem with that and the downside is you have to actually dump those bags into your boxes, and that leaves some exposure risk for you.
Well, not necessarily, because you could get smart boxes. That's a pretty good way to go.
It's not only Fortress or it's not only Force or Aztec or whatever. There's quite a few different ones, and that's a good thing for you because now you've got some flexibility there as to what you're going to use.
Okay, but in terms of the application methods, we're going to talk about in-furrow, band, and T-band. So in-furrow is putting all that insecticide right down basically with the seed. You can certainly do that, but now your insecticide is in a concentrated small area. And don't forget that the roots on the corn plant, the primary roots, the nodal roots, they're going to come out above where the seed is planted. So now you've literally got your insecticide too deep. That's why we prefer a band or a T-band in a lot of cases. Now, many farmers don't like the band, and I can't blame them because by banding, that leaves some of the insecticide on top of the soil. We probably don't really want to do that.
Well, and then you end up with a year like 2012 where it's an extreme drought, and you know what? Some of those granules just didn't get enough moisture to break down and get down into the soil.
So T-band is probably our preferred method in a lot of cases where some of the stuff drops in the furrow and the rest of the stuff is on top of the ground, but then the closing wheels come along and kind of push that stuff together, get a little bit of dirt on it. That's the safest way to go, and like we say, probably the best. Now you have some down in furrow for protection against things like wireworms and white grubs, and then you also have some up where the nodal roots are going to be for better protection for rootworms.
Okay, now we talked about if you have dry boxes on your planter or if you have smart boxes, those are good ways to put insecticide on. But what about the liquid? Well, there are many guys that are still using Capture LFR. That's the liquid fertilizer ready version of Capture that can mix right with your starter or your pop-up type fertilizer application. So you can put a liquid insecticide on. Now, there used to be more choices in the liquid market. Right now, Capture is pretty much the only choice in the liquid market. So if you're interested in using a liquid system, it's a lot less expensive to get set up that way, and you may be set up for it already if you're already putting on some liquid fertilizer.
Now, the nice thing about the liquid program is it's simple, it's easy, it doesn't cost a lot of money to get into the program, and if you have great big boxes on your planter for seed, you don't have to go back to smaller boxes and put a smart box system on or just a regular box for insecticide on. You can use that liquid product, but we'll just be upfront with you. The liquid product is probably in a lot of cases not quite as good as some of the dry products like Force or
Well,
Aztec.
hold on now. I guess you look at this, and we're putting on insecticide, on our farm starting in the middle of April, and we're expecting that to hold us, for a couple of months at least.
Yeah, we should explain real quick. In our area, for example, in southern South Dakota, we're going to have corn hopefully planted in April. It'll be the middle of April to the end of April. And a lot of these rootworms are not going to hatch until we get to the end of May, maybe even the first week of June. Then they're going to feed for about a month. So that's the kind of time we're looking at protecting. We want protection in June with a treatment we're going to put on in April. And so I agree with you, Darren. It's not really fair to some of these products to say, well, you have to last out here for 2 to 3 months.
So we get a lot of people that ask, well, wait a minute, can't I just spray something on foliar or post-emerge and try and soak some of that in?
Yeah, it just doesn't work. So we used to use Furidan as a rescue treatment back years ago, but Furidan's off the market today. Your next best option would be liquid Lorsban. If you want to do that, use the very highest labeled rate and pray for about a 3-inch rain immediately afterwards. And even then, expect 50% control at best.
Plus, don't mix it with anything else. Otherwise, it gets kind of hot and could burn your crop.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you're out there, let's say the end of June in our area, well, now you're just talking about a revenge kill. All the damage has been done. The bugs are just about to convert to adults. So what good did you do? You didn't save any yield. Yeah, you killed a few bugs, but so what? The point is you've got to kill those bugs before they're feeding. You've got to get them under control right when they're hatching in May or very early June.
Okay, let's talk about that now. When they become adults and they start popping out of the ground, you can still control them at that stage. When you see those adult beetles, is oftentimes right around when your corn is silking, and you'll see them feeding on those ends of the silks and clipping some silks off from your ear. That's a good time to go out with a foliar insecticide, and actually it's pretty easy and cheap to kill them. You can use a low-end rate of a pyrethroid, or if you're out spraying for corn leaf aphids or something else, you can wipe out those corn rootworm adults at the same time.
Okay, so once again, what we're talking about here is using a bunch of different insecticides to get rootworm control. We do encourage you to rotate your mode of action. So if you're going to use a pyrethroid like Force 1 year, use an organophosphate like Aztec. Aztec's about 95% organophosphate. Switch to that the next year, something like that. We have talked in the past about insecticide and herbicide interaction. We have the most problem with Counter because that's systemic. If you want to use that, that's fine. Counter is a pretty good insecticide, and it's the very best on nematodes that we've got. And this is a big topic. A lot of farmers now are realizing, ooh, man, if I'm going to plant corn, I've got to have insecticide out there, especially with the price of corn where it is today. So if you're considering this on your farm, I just want you to think again about how you're going to put that insecticide on, the application method that you're going to use, band, T-band, or in furrow, and talk to your agronomist a little bit about the best thing for your area and your farm.
I just wish, Brian, we could get corn rootworms to feed on our weed of the week instead of our corn, because our weed of the week is tough to control. Can you identify this week's weed?
Advanced Farming Systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. Our precision farming solution is less complex and built right into our equipment. Factory integrated with open architecture, AFS works with all of your implements, no matter what color they are. And our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling 24/7, 365. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
I'm ready. Everything is better to the power of Nutrisphere N. Proven to shield against leaching, volatilization, and denitrification, Nutrisphere N Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager helps you maximize the efficiency of your nitrogen applications. In fact, research shows that in 184 corn trials, Nutrisphere N increases yields by an average of 13.2 bushels per acre. Do the math for yourself. Contact your local fertilizer dealer today and take your operation to the power of Nutrisphere N.
For lower costs and higher production, see your Mandaco dealer. Ask about the best production-built land roller on the market. Mandaco, simple design for easy transport and easy use. 12 to 62 foot widths, heavy-duty 4x8 by 3/8 inch tube frame, and now available with a steerable wing wheel. Mandaco land rollers. Improved soil to seed contact, faster, more uniform germination, less moisture loss. Eliminate downtime due to rocks. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Hey Brian, it's Farm Guy.
What brings you to our farm?
I watch Ag PhD every week and know that you guys do a lot of field testing.
We test a lot of products here, and when something works, we use it on our farm.
Oh, like agriculture liquid fertilizers. You guys started talking about ProGerminator and SureK on the show a few years ago.
But I was skeptical.
You're always skeptical.
Should Brian be skeptical of agro-liquid fertilizers? Find out at www.farmguytv.com.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
You know, if you only gain a bushel or two, is something really worth doing? Well, that's a question we hear all the time. So instead of looking at it as, well, it was only a bushel or two, it's no big deal, we try to look at things in the form of return on investment.
It goes back to something that our dad told us growing up. He just said, look, I don't care what I spend, I just care what I make at the end of the year. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, we don't want to just go throwing money around thinking, oh, commodity prices are high, we're just going to spend whatever. We want to look at every individual thing we're doing on the farm and say, does that make us money year in and year out? Now, it's not always going to pay. Just like any investment out there, any good investment, it's probably not going to be a sure thing. If it was, well, heck, everybody would do it. But if you can make money on it 80, 90, 95% of the time, it's something you've definitely got to consider.
All right, so how much money do you really need to make on an investment? You know, you look at many of the crop, as many of the crop inputs as we're doing in the early spring. We're putting them out 6 months in advance of when we're going to get a crop. So you're putting it out there just hoping that 6 months down the road, there's going to be a payback on these things. So you have to look back at some historical data and then also use some common sense on your farm.
Okay, well, let's just run through a very quick and simple example. Let's just say there was something you could spend $5 on the farm and you get 3 bushels of corn back for doing this particular investment. It increases your yield 3 bushels. And let's say corn is worth only $5. Only $5. Okay, so you get $15 back from a $5 investment. So net, you come out with $10 an acre. All right, if you have 1,000 acres then, that's $10,000. So that's one way you can look at it. Here's another way you can look at it. You got a net gain of $10 divided by the $5 that you invested. That is a net return on investment of 200%. Okay, that's great. But let's take it a step further. If let's say you only invested your money for 6 months on this $5 by the time you harvested that corn and sold it and got your money back. All right, if it's only invested for 6 months, well, now you have to double that return. And now in effect, you've gotten 400% APR, net return on investment. That's awfully good.
That's not bad. That's better than you can do in the stock market or certainly at the bank.
Yep, so I've given you 3 different ways to look at it. Here's the 4th, and this is, for me, the most important way. If, let's say, this took me 20 extra hours during planting season to do this particular job, I divide how many dollars I made in total, which was $10,000, divided by 20 hours, and that's a job that paid me $500 an hour. Now, that's something that I am willing to do. I'm willing to put my time into that. How often are you looking at this, though? I mean, are you running the numbers all the time? That's all I'm getting at. This is literally something I think about every single day. Is the job I'm doing going to pay me $500 an hour? Is it going to pay me $100 an hour? Or is it going to pay me 50 cents an hour? I really honestly think about that all the time. And I would encourage you to do the same thing, because if you want to make money on the farm, you've got to have jobs that pay well.
Well, with everything you're doing on the farm, you have to think about this, because I know Brian threw out $500 an hour for one job, and you say, okay, he's just exaggerating a little bit. No, he's not. That really happens every day. And you look at what you're doing today, right now on your farm, and you say, well, what am I going to do that's going to pay me $100 or $500 an hour? You have to analyze that on your farm. Maybe that's working on your equipment today, or maybe that's working on your books a little bit more.
Yeah, but
out in the field, there's so many decisions you're making, and there are many of them that can make you this much or more.
Yeah, but it's not just in the field. You have the choice today to work on your equipment or haul grain or go to a seminar where you might get some valuable ideas for your farm. What's the $500 job there? Well, you know how much hauling grain is going to pay you.
Exactly. It's not going to pay you any more today than it is tomorrow.
Yep. Now, working on equipment, that actually might be a $100 an hour job. But the point is, you've got to look at all these things and analyze it. You have to learn more. You have to have more knowledge if you're going to move forward and make improvements on your farm.
Well, there's certainly a lot of ways to improve the profitability on your farm. The important thing is analyzing what you're doing, looking at it from a return on investment standpoint, and perhaps even on a how many dollars per hour basis it's going to pay you. And when you find those things that pay well, do more of those. It sounds simple, but there are a lot of us that aren't following that advice.
Well, speaking of advice, we'll give you a little advice on our Weed of the Week. It's coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Mandaco.
For lower costs and higher production, Mandaco leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Our Weed of the Week is Honeyvine Milkweed. It's a noxious weed, it's a perennial, and this one is tough to control.
Well, you know what, Brian? Whenever you talk about perennial weeds that are also noxious weeds, they're ones that can spread fast and take over an area and decrease the value of that land. It's something that, hey, if you see this Weed of the Week on your farm, today is the day. This is the $100 an hour job for today. Go out and get that thing. Get rid of it.
Okay, so how are you going to stop this thing? Let's start in soybeans.
Okay, well, in soybeans, really, your best bet is planting Roundup Ready soybeans and using a strong rate of Roundup. Now, if you've got this weed out there, it's a perennial weed. If you have it out there before you have your soybeans planted, that's a great time to smoke it, because you can use a really high rate of Roundup. You can wipe it out. Use the full labeled rate. Take care of that in one shot. Now, some people will say, well, wait a minute, I want to use a quart now, come back with a quart later in crop. That seems to burn it back.
Yeah, but see, the problem is all it does is burns it back. You have to have enough Roundup, enough glyphosate to get all the way down through that extensive root system and kill every last growing point. When you use a quart one time and a quart the next time, that's probably not going to be enough. You're going to kill the top growth, you'll kill some of the growing points below ground, but you won't get them all, and you're going to have this milkweed come back on you again.
Okay, let's say you have Liberty Link soybeans. Liberty is definitely not as good on this particular weed as what Roundup is. It's a perennial weed, it has that big root system, and Liberty's just going to burn off top growth, and you're going to see it come back on you probably later on in the season. So what can you do? Well, you can use some of the conventional products, like Cobra does an okay job burning it back. Flexstar or Reflex will do a good job of suppressing it. Again, it's top growth control, but at least you can keep it from competing against this year's crop.
All right, how about in corn?
Well, in corn, Status is actually labeled. Now, I realize Status, does a good job burning things off at the top, but it can get down into the roots a little bit.
It's pretty good on a lot of those viney weeds like bindweed and buckwheat, along with this honeyvine milkweed.
But here's the big thing. You can't go with a 2.5 ounce rate, a Roundup Ready rate or something like that. You need to use the full labeled rate, hit it early, and when you're using that high rate, I would strongly suggest doing it when the corn is maybe 6 inches tall, maybe a little bit bigger, but not a whole lot.
Real quick, any suggestions in wheat?
Well, in wheat, you have to start with a good Roundup burn down. There's nothing in crop that completely wipes it out. So it is a perennial weed. It's going to be out there before you seed. Take care of it, whether it's in the spring or in the fall.
Best shot Bucktril, maybe?
Bucktril's probably going to have a little
husky.
bit of burn, but yeah, again, you got to do something in the burn down to take care of honeyvine milkweed.
Yep, well, once again, this is a perennial. It's a noxious weed, really difficult to control. So make sure you're doing everything you can on your farm, especially in a burn down situation.
That's all the time we have for this week's weed, honeyvine milkweed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Advanced farming systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. AFS is less complex and built right into our equipment, and our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling. The world of farming is changing, Will you be ready?
If dry insecticide is your choice for corn rootworm protection this spring, but you need a system to apply it, we'll discuss one possible option on today's Iron Talk. Back in the day when the lion's share of new corn planters came with dry boxes for fertilizer or insecticide, there was no need for an alternative system. Many of the products that were being used were at close to 10 pounds per acre rates and could be applied accurately enough using a conventional pulley and chain metering system. Today, things are different. Most farmers have given up the dry insecticide boxes in favor of 3-bushel seed boxes or large central fill systems. Now, if you would like to apply dry insecticide, chances are you're looking at adding a smart box system to your existing planter. Smart box systems have some big advantages over the old ways of applying insecticide. First, AMVAC, the company that markets SmartBox insecticides, has a program to help pay a portion of the cost of the system as you purchase SmartBox insecticides. Second, putting the insecticide in smart boxes eliminates much of your exposure risk to the insecticides you're using. Third, the SmartBox system has a more accurate system for metering low rates of insecticides. Some of the new ones are much more concentrated than the older insecticides we used to use. And depending on the product you choose, you may now be able to load new smart boxes on your planter just once in the morning and plant all day long. Now, if you want to use dry insecticide this year, there's still time to add a smart box system to your planter this winter. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show. Don't miss this year's free Ag PhD Winter Workshops. At Ag PhD, we're all about helping you raise better crops and earn more money on your farm. We'll talk about drought-proofing your crop, weed and rootworm resistance, how to improve your fertility program, and on-farm trials and field tests. We'll also tell you the good and bad about the new products and technologies on the market and give you our recommendations for pest control and a host of different crops. You'll get some insights on new farm regulations and tax laws going forward, and as always, you'll receive a free agronomy manual. Learn more and sign up today at agphd.com.
Advanced farming systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. Our precision farming solution is less complex and built right into our equipment. Factory integrated with open architecture, AFS works with all of your implements, no matter what color they are. And our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling 24/7, 365. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
Introducing the all-new Backsaver Swing Hopper Auger Mover. Backsavers have interchangeable parts which allows you easy access to move or swing your augers to fit your harvesting needs. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Iron Talk, Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, and much more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
What's so sweet about manure? Animals eating prairie grass and returning nutrients to the soil through manure is the way nature is intended to work. To learn more about manure, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.